Okay, so everyone, for our first presentation, let's welcome Madoka, Kana, and Megumi.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Madoka. I'm Megumi. And Kana. And today we are going to talk to you about Women's Aid, which is a British organization to help women against domestic violence. So first, I will be talking to you about what domestic violence is, and then tell you a few statistics about domestic violence in international aspect. And then Megumi will be talking to you about the United Kingdom statistics and 2 survivor stories. And then Kana will talk to you about the actual organization, what they do, and how your money can help. And then at the end, I will be talking to you about why you should help us support this organization. So, first, $5.8 billion. Do you know what that money means? Well, it's such a big money, you might not be able to understand how big it is. So, here's something to help you. Well, the school fees for 1 year at this school is $1.5 million. Yen, sorry. And with
Feels
that
like.
amount of money converts to yen, you can pay for 4 million students. And 4 million students is the number of freshmen in Japan as a nation. So basically this is a huge number, and what this number is the amount of money used on domestic violence victims in America in 1 year. So what is domestic violence? As you can see, it's physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, and economical. So there's so many ways to abuse a person. Now, physical is the actual applying of physical pain to a person, but also denying the person of sleep and depriving them of any medical treatment that they need. Sexual is forcing someone to participate in unwanted sexual activity. Emotional is threatening them, intimidating them, undermining their victim's self-worth or self-esteem, and controlling what they can or cannot do. Verbal is ridiculing, manipulating, criticizing them, as well as completely ignoring them, making them feel unwanted and unloved. Economical is completely not controlling their money and making them beg for allowance. And also it includes not letting them finish school or not letting them have work. And it's got so much effect, including physical, psychological, including depression and anxiety disorder, and also PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and financial. And then there's the long-term, and also there's an effect on the respondents, as in families, friends, as well as policemen and psychologists. And burnout is when the clinicians who are there to help these victims are so overwhelmed with the emotional exhaustion that they just can't feel empathy for them anymore. So as you can see, it's got so much effect on everyone, not just the victims. Now here are some international statistics. There are 79 countries with no or unknown legislation against domestic violence, which means that this problem goes unnoticed in so many countries. And in many cultures, domestic violence is hidden because it's just traditional or customary. So, for example, in Iran, 45 women under the age of 20 are murdered in honor killings. And also, 20 to 70% seems a big number, but it's the percentage of cases unreported. So, because it's unreported, you don't know what 100% is. It's a very big number. But the reasons why they can't tell anyone is because they're afraid of retribution, or they are just emotionally dependent on that person even though they're hurting them, or they're scared for their children, or they're just ashamed. So it's a hidden crime. And unfortunately, domestic violence can lead to murder, and apparently 70% of female murder victims are killed by their male partners. Now, Megumi will talk to you about what is happening in the United Kingdom. Megumi?
Thank you, Maruka. Well, I'm going to talk about specifically about United Kingdom because the organization Women's Aid, which we are talking about, is in the United Kingdom. So 45% of all women have experience of domestic violence in their lifetime. It's really big number because it suggests that almost half of all women experiences domestic violence. So it's very common. And 26% of all men in United Kingdom experiences domestic violence in their lifetime. So it tells us that domestic violence is not just women's matter, but it also affects men, and they can also be victims. And here are some shocking statistics. First, 2 women per week are killed by their violent partners or ex-partners in the United Kingdom. And in every single minute, the police of United Kingdom receive a phone call reporting domestic violence. So it's really common, and it's happening anytime, anywhere. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories from survivors. First one is Claire's story. Claire was abused by her stepfather in her childhood. At first, they were getting kind of well, and her stepfather was spoiling her. But later on, her stepfather started to physically abuse her, and also he started to physically abuse her mother. So domestic violence was everyday occurrence in her childhood. And when she became a teenager, he started to date with a boyfriend. And at first, their relationship was good, and they spent a lot of time with each other. But then he became very controlling, and he started to check all her text messages and call logs. And then sometime after, then he started to also physically abuse her. But because of her childhood experience, she didn't realize that it was domestic violence. She thought it was acceptable thing, and she thought it was usual. So she couldn't realize. But sometime after, then she became kind of stressed, and she took overdose. She took too much medicines or something, and then she was carried to hospital by ambulance. And then she escaped from him with the support of Women's Aid. And then now she's trying to tell her story to everyone in order to raise awareness of domestic violence to help other women like her. And second story is Jillian's story. Jillian was a married woman, and her husband was very charming to outside world, but he was very abusive at home. So he was very two-sided man, just like Jekyll and Hyde. So people around them didn't notice that he was such a bad husband. So she thought no one would believe her story. So she couldn't talk to anyone about her suffering. And at last, she decided to talk about it to her doctor. And this doctor was very helpful, and he has advised her to contact Women's Aid. And she contacted to Women's Aid, and then Women's Aid helped her to escape from him. And then she could escape from him. And so these are the stories. And now I think you've understood that domestic violence is very common problem, and it's very serious, and we need to act immediately. So it's really meaningful to donate to Women's Aid. And next, Kana will talk about Women's Aid, the organization itself. Kana?
Thank you, Megumi. Now I'll tell you Women's Aid first. Women's Aid is national domestic violence charity in UK. And their main concern is domestic violence in women and children, but they also deal with various problems related to domestic violence, like violence against men. Their main idea is keep women and children safety. They believe that everyone has a right to live in safety without fear, and the society has a duty to recognize and defend this right. But in order to accomplish this idea, Women's Aid provides various supports, information, and suggestions. So I'll tell you what Women's Aid actually do next. One of the main services is a helpline, telephone helpline, which is called Great Phone 24-hour National Domestic Violence Helpline. The purpose of the helpline is provide women, children, and also the supporters with information and suggestions. And there are also helplines for those under special circumstances, like male victims, Turkish, Jewish, and Asian women, and women from Black or minority community. And another useful services is refuge accommodation. Women's Aid have about 500 secret and private houses in UK. And other services include housing issues, financial issues, and advocacy services related to domestic violence. And here, I'll introduce you 3 example campaigns of Women's Aid. One is Valentine's Day campaign. Women's Aid highlights the fact that over half a million of women, Valentine's Day is not a romantic day, but a day like any other day when they live in a fear of a violent partner. And another one is the Body Shop campaign. The Body Shop is a worldwide cosmetic store. Women's Aid and the Body Shop work together for the safety of women and children. In the Stop Violence in the Home campaign, the Body Shop sold special lip care sticks, and the money went directly to Women's Aid. And this is Cut movie performed by famous actress Keira Knightley. This commercial film has been shown in cinema and on television for raising awareness that domestic violence is a real problem, not a fiction. And these are some main activities of Women's Aid. And next, I'll tell you how to support Women's Aid specifically. The easiest way is donation. Money can be a support for Women's Aid. For example, 10 pounds can help 13 children, and 100 pounds could help 16 abused women and children. And we can also buy some products from the supporters of Women's Aid, like the Body Shop, and sell unwanted items, and even recycling styrofoam can be a support for Women's Aid. The Women's Aid also set up various fundraising events, like running a marathon and other sports events. So joining these events also help Women's Aid. And what I recommend you the most is creating own events. Creating own events is great opportunity to get together with friends, family, and the member of local community to take a stand against domestic violence. And whether individual or company create their own events, they can enjoy many benefits from the activity. And Women's Aid help 250,000 women and children each year. So, and they need 1.5 million funds to help the number of people. So that even a small amount of money can help women and children living domestic violence. Next, Madoka will show you the reason for supporting Women's Aid. Madoka.
Thank you, Kana. Why should you help us support Women's Aid? First, it's got history. This organization's been around since the late 1960s, around the time of women's liberation movement back in United Kingdom. And they have fought for social justice, and they still are. So because this charity's been going on for about 40 years, I think it's safe to say it's pretty legitimate charity organization. Second, it's well organized and very active. As you can see, this is the homepage. It's got lots of information, and you've got newsletters and forums where members can talk about their issues, or they can make other people aware of this problem. And they've got medical centers, and then as you saw, there's the campaigns, and they've got shops so they can raise money to help these women. And lastly, it is a good cause, and you can be sure that your support is for meaningful purposes. Now, domestic violence is a problem where it can affect anybody from any race, gender, beliefs, and backgrounds, and your help will make a big difference in their lives. And if you want to know more information, these are the sites, and these are all connected to their website, so you can see the Karen Knightley commercials and learn more about it. Again, there's so much more to tell about this issue, so please help us help them. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Oh, yes, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much for this introduction to the organization. And I just wondered whether they have any activities in Japan, or are they affiliated with organization in Japan, or
This is just United Kingdom
just the
and
UK.
Ireland.
I introduced the body shop. The body shop is also in Japan, so we can indirectly support Women's Aid.
Yes, Adi.
Sorry, I didn't understand the statistics of the honor killings in Iran. You mentioned that 45 women were killed, but is it like 45 women per year or?
Per year, sorry.
Per year.
Yeah, under the age of 20.
Like if I go to UK and you happen to get a boot, am I also covered by the aid, even if I'm not the UK? I don't understand. Yeah.
Pardon?
Like, if you're foreigners, are you also covered, or is it also just for the UK nation?
I think it's people living in UK.
Because they're helpline for Jews and foreigners.
Turkish and the Asian women.
As she said.
How does the organization actually help the women or men?
Actually, Women's Aid cannot save the women living with domestic violence. They cannot stop violence. The only violent partner can stop the violence. So their main concern is keep safety. So in order to increase safety, they provide some plans. For example, using refuge accommodation or inform some services.
You asked about men.
No, that's women's organization. But I thought, because you talked also about men who are abused. So I thought. but this organization is about women. Okay, sorry.
But I think they introduce like helplines for men, like if you're abused men, go to this site.
Okay.
Can you summarize really quick on how the money is exactly spent? Like, so it's spent in the refugee housing, and what else? Where else do the donations go to?
Medical care or like psychological care, like counselors and all. And also, there are many women who got also alcoholic, because when one of the story, maybe Jillian said that it was easier to endure the abuse when she was drunk, so she got alcoholic, and after she moved to the accommodation, the counselor came and they also resolved the problem of alcoholism. So those kind of problems.
So it's only if they admit that they're being abused, then they can get that support. Otherwise, they just go to a hospital. They say, I ran into a wall. Instead, my husband beat me. They don't get that support.
Yeah, but doctors might introduce women's aid, then they can get support.
If they suspect something.
Yeah.
And I think some of the money also, like not